Hey guys, welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles! Resolve. In the last episode, we started the second day of the investigation for this case, and we had some unraveling going on. We met Susato-san properly this time, not like in the trial where we just had some chit-chat, but we talked with her thoroughly, and we discovered some things like a suspicion that Kazuma-san could be alive, and well, things are going to unfold pretty handily in this game, it seems. But to get there, we have to get to the bottom of things, and to do that, we just have to play on. So we are going to do that. We are in Mr. Sholmes' suite. It's the 23rd October at Sholmes' suite. Oh, okay, he's not here though. But since we're here, we are just going to examine stuff, of course, like this. This blackboard is where Iris scribbles down her latest ideas, isn't it? Let's see. Oh, she seems to have drawn a lot of little stick figures all lined up. Look. Cheap apples at the market is what all of them say. What? The little figures can speak? All your questions would be answered if only you would read this month's Rand's magazine. So I'm the only one who can't make any sense of this. Well. Okay, if that is the case, I'm not gonna fiddle with the rest here. So let's think about where to go. Maybe let's have a look at the Lord Chief Justice's office. 23rd October. British Supreme Court. Lord Chief Justice's office. Oh, who's that standing beside Lord Stronghart? I wonder. I've never seen her before.
Ah, the young champion of the court. You had some success this morning, I understand. And you've thrown the entire government into disarray as a result.
Oh, you mean because of Professor Harebrayne's experiment?
Sham science being demonstrated at London's Great Exhibition. The country's been made to look foolish, and now politicians are scrabbling the response. Lord Van Zieks is in Whitehall as we speak, giving an emergency briefing.
Oh dear, I didn't mean to cause any trouble.
None of this is your responsibility. The government is entirely to blame for having been taken in. The special dispensation that prevents investigation at the scene will be annulled later today. Once that happens, my forensic investigation team will move in and deal with the scrap metal in no time.
It's scrap metal now, is it? Until later then, Lord Stronghart.
Yes, thank you.
Who is that? Who was that?
That was Dr. Courtney Seth, Scotland Yard's esteemed chief coroner. She's leading the forensic investigation team's handling of this case. She was just delivering a report about the victim in fact.
Oh, I see, about Mr. Asman.
Following the outcome of the trial earlier, I asked the coroner's office to reevaluate its findings. I don't have time to tell you what she concluded. If you want to know, you'll have to ask her directly. You can find her in the forensics laboratory.
All right.
Now, what were you here to see me about? I can give you 7 minutes and 39 seconds of my time.
So he's not running quite so spectacularly late anymore. Well, time to converse. The forensic investigation team. What exactly is the forensic investigation team that you mentioned before?
The British Empire's police force must become the most exemplary in the world. For that to happen, it's imperative that we embrace forensic science and everything it has to offer. I first created the forensic investigation team a year ago now, unofficially of course, to pave the way.
Goodness, a year ago?
At next month's symposium, I intend to present the results of their work to the world. Once I do that, the House of Lords will be powerless to oppose the creation of a full-scale forensic diversion. And once once that happens, the position of Attorney General will be mine, and criminals will suffer dearly.
What do you mean?
For too long, those scoundrels have made a mockery of our legal system with false evidence and bribes. But London's scum is about to be rounded up and burned in the fires of hell. I intend to see it personally. By creating the finest police force the world has ever known to protect our honor and our future.
Look at those eyes. He means every word.
Dr. Scythe is an extremely reliable coroner. When I officially established the forensics division at Scotland Yard, she will run it as the right-hand woman. Now then, speaking of the symposium, Miss Mikotoba.
Oh, yes, my lord.
Your father should be on the high seas as we speak, making his way here to represent the Empire of Japan.
Yes, that's right. I understand he will arrive at the beginning of next month. Are you acquainted, Lord Stronghart? With Professor Mikotoba, I mean.
It was many years ago now, but yes, I remember Dr. Mikotoba very well.
Dr. Mikotoba, let's talk about him.
If my memory serves, it was some 15 years ago now that your father came to Britain as a visiting student.
It was the year I was born, so yes, 16 years ago in fact.
Mikotoba was a young practitioner of forensic science, and Jigoku accompanied him as a young, promising judge. The
punctiliousness. Sorry, guys. Punctiliousness
and politeness of the Japanese at the time impressed us greatly. Not that I wish to imply impoliteness or carelessness on your part in any way.
I didn't think that you were.
Dr. Mikotoba studied forensics at one of London's large hospitals. St. Sinners, if I'm not mistaken. Dr. Scythe was also there then, as it happens.
Then Dr. Scythe knows my father, does she?
She was a young medical assistant at the time, so I doubt their paths crossed regularly. But I have no doubt they knew each other superficially. After all, Dr. Mikotoba was here studying a subject for some 6 years in total.
6 years? That's a long time to be studying abroad, isn't it? I lived with my grandmother in those years. So he left his newly born daughter behind and went overseas for 6 whole years. It was a rather turbulent time at home. Oh. Perhaps father wanted a reason to get away. What do you mean? Why? Well, clearly something was going on at the time. Let's talk about Lord von Zeeks then. I wanted to ask you about Lord von Zeeks actually. I heard that his older brother was killed some years ago by a mass murderer known as the Professor who targeted nobles and royalty. Is that right?
You Japanese are a thorough lot. You've done your research well. Yes. And you could say it was that very incident that gave rise to the Reaper.
What? Why?
When his brother Clint von Zeeks was murdered, it was just after young Barak had graduated from University of London and became a prosecutor. When obvious criminals who managed to evade conviction in court started disappearing, rumors quickly spread throughout the capital. Londoners started to say that wherever Barak von Zeeks went, the ghost of his dead brother wasn't far behind.
Oh my word! So Lord von Zeeks isn't the Reaper? It's the ghost of his brother?
Ever since that time, he became a very aloof figure in London's legal circles.
Oh yes, Lord Stronghart. Go ahead. It's about Professor Harebrayne's experimental machine. we'd like your permission to examine the remains if possible.
Are you well versed in science then?
Not in the slightest. In fact, you could say I was barely aware of the subject at all until recently.
Well, the special dispensation legally preventing investigation of the machine is currently being annulled. Within a few hours, Dr. Sayer's team of forensic experts will begin their own investigation. But I suppose until then, there's no harm in you looking at the wreckage as long as you touch nothing.
Thank you! Being able to look at it is better than nothing. And I'll be able to see it too.
Your time is up. You'll have to excuse me now, I'm afraid. My next engagement calls.
We are extremely sorry to have troubled you when you are so busy, my lord.
I have important matters to attend to in preparation for the symposium, you understand?
And off he goes. Okay, just to have a quick look here. Nobody here. Nobody here. Okay, so we are straight moving on. New location has been added, which is forensic laboratory. Okay, we could go there. But first things first, we are going to just stay in order and have a look at the prison. Oh, Professor Harebrayne. 23rd October, local prison, cell 11. What's he doing? He's... Oh my, the whole wall of the cell is covered in mathematical equations. And he's still writing more now. Professor, sorry to interrupt.
Mr. Naruto. And who's this young lady?
My name is Satomi Kotoba. I'm Mr. Naruto's judicial assistant. It's a pleasure to meet you, Professor-san.
If only I'd met a refined young woman like you sooner. None of this would have happened. And no, that's not logical. That makes no sense at all.
Oh dear, I'm sorry if my presence here upsets you. I owe you an apology too, Professor. I didn't manage to deliver what I promised I would in court this morning.
Oh no. The whole miserable affair. It all happened because I've been such a complete and utter clot.
Professor Harebrayne? What have you been working on in your cell?
Oh, you mean that? Oh dear, how embarrassing. I was suddenly struck by an idea, you see, and I simply had to write it down. The wall was all I had to hand.
Oh, is it some new hypothesis? Something to surpass super high voltage instantaneous kinesis, maybe?
No, actually, this is my autobiography.
Your autobiography? Sorry, guys. Your autobiography?
How I Was Diddled and Fiddled by Albert Harebrayne. I found I can represent my odd fortunes with only odd numbers in an ambitious set of simultaneous equations.
Really?
I'm going to have to pay back all the loans I took for the kinesis machine, you see. So it's going to be a new serial publication from next month. Part 1, an odd birth, an odd upbringing.
You can't beat the man's optimism, that's for sure. I see. Well, for now, would you mind if we talked a little more about the case?
Oh, yes, of course. I've been working through the numbers. I was diddled, I was fiddled by the pair of them. By Asman and by the Duluth engineered rubber.
We're not going to have to sit through an explanation of all these equations, are we? Hopefully not. But first things first, I'm going to present him some stuff.
Ah, fascinating, yes.
In Japan, where I come from, it's the symbol of defense lawyer. Wearing it is very bracing, I find.
Your words make some sense to me, but they are entirely illogical.
What do you mean?
Well, for example, I find this white laboratory coat that I wear for my work very bracing too. However, in my case, there's a perfectly logical reason for that feeling.
Oh, really? What is it?
I purchased the wrong size by mistake. This one is too small for me. The sleeves, especially, are extremely bracing. I can barely move my wrists.
That's what you call logical, is it?
Of course, it's entirely logical. That's science, Mr. Naruhodo.
Okay, if you say so.
How could this have happened?
You must feel awful, as well as a man losing his life. The crystal tower was greatly damaged too.
I know what happened. I must have been that. It must have been that.
That?
The day before the demonstration, I had my usual meal of frankfurters at the hotel restaurant. When I paid the bill, they gave me 3 shillings too much in change. But instead of saying anything, I just slipped the coins into my pocket. They're still there now. It's divine retribution for my wrongdoing. That's what this is.
For a scientist, he has some very illogical anecdotes. Long and illogical. Well, what about the crossbow, Professor? Professor Harebrayne, what do you make of this?
Oh yes, that's just what we need to prove my hypothesis, isn't it?
No, it's nothing to do with your hypothesis, actually.
Then take it away. I don't want to be bothered with anything that doesn't assist my science.
Alright, keep your abundant hair on. Your abundant hair. Okay, what about the green cloth? Nothing about that, we can just skip it. We are going to skip that. So, what about the experiment sketch? Maybe you can tell us something here. No, you can't. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. Why not? That's okay. Okay.
How could this have happened?
You must feel awful, as well as a man losing his life. The crystal tower was greatly damaged too.
I know what happened. It must have been that.
That?
The day before the demonstration, I had my usual meal of frankfurt.
Okay, but we already had that, so we can skip a course. Okay. Divine retribution, long and illogical stories. What about the autopsy report? You're a scientist. Maybe you can make something out of it. Okay, you can't. That's okay. What about the screwdriver? You have a very close relationship to your screwdriver, apparently. Professor, do you recognize this?
Oh, it's Andrew, my faithful friend. How have you been? Are you alright? Nobody's mistreated you, have they?
Don't worry, he's being very well looked after.
I always rub him with the machine oil until he's gleaming.
Right.
And then when I come to tighten a screw with him, he slips in my hand and I can't do it. It's that age-old problem faced by driver files the world over, isn't it?
I really wouldn't know, I'm afraid. Oh, okay. Unfortunate. But maybe the photograph of the balloon with the bolts. Maybe you can tell us something about this. No, you can't. Okay, that's okay. That's okay. That means we are through and we are ready to converse with you. This morning's trial.
Everything I believed in has been turned on its head. My research, Mr. Asman, the kinesis machine, my hypothesis even.
I'm sorry it's come to this. There was really no other way.
No, it's not your fault. I wanted to protect my work, but in the end there was nothing worth protecting. It was never my intention to deceive anyone. I didn't want to trick the public.
No, of course you didn't.
But in court this morning I realized something.
Oh.
If you've done something wrong without knowing it, you've still done something wrong. Logically it makes no difference if you were aware of it or not. Ignorance is a pure excuse. The blame still lies with me.
Oh, Professor.
He believed in me this morning, you know. Barak did. He believed in my hypothesis.
Well, I think that was just a necessary fact in the prosecution establishing its case.
No. Barak wouldn't do something like that. I'm sure he genuinely believed it.
Did he?
I think I understand now. Why was what he decided to take on the prosecution in my trial, I mean.
Aha, von Sieg's motivation. Let's talk about that.
After the terrible accident happened, nobody would believe in my hypothesis anymore. Not the police, not the prosecution service, not any lawyers even.
I feel like I dealt some kind of finishing blow there.
So if any other prosecutor had taken the case, if it was anyone other than Barak, I'm sure the prosecution would have declared my hypothesis a complete and utter nonsense.
And in that case, you would have been declared a fraud yourself, Mr. Professor.
Exactly, which would have been a fate worse than death for me. But Barak instead insisted that I was a proper man of science from start to finish.
You think that's why he...
I know him very well indeed. He's an extremely kind-hearted soul.
But that extremely kind-hearted soul spent all morning trying to paint you as a murderer, didn't he?
Well, admittedly, that part of the analysis appears to have some flaws in it.
And what about the whole Reaper side of things? How does that fit with the kind-hearted soul idea? Let's talk about Mr. Asman.
Do you think he set out to trick me from the very start?
I'm sorry to say, that does seem likely, yes.
When I first met him, he introduced himself as a wealthy financier. He looked over the paper I'd written and said my work would benefit all humanity and must be pursued. He was so enthused. He was so empathetic.
But in reality, he was the mastermind of some vast criminal network, it seems.
I still can't believe it.
As the machine was essentially a set decoration for some stage magic. It probably didn't require a large amount of investment, actually. But the scale of it wasn't just some small trick. It was a very elaborate feat of deception.
All young scientists are full of hope about their burgeoning ideas, full of zeal. But none of us have any money. We want to do research, but we can't afford it. Many of us take on bare legal part-time work to try to earn just a few measly pennies to carry on. To go through all of that, only to be taken for a complete fool. It's too rotten to believe.
It is, I agree. And that's why we have to find those responsible and bring them to justice. Mr. Asman is no more, of course, which leaves only the engineer. Mr. Enoch Drebber. Enoch, maybe. Enoch Drebber. I haven't thought about his name. Let me just do that for a second. Courtney Scythe. Bohemian Boy. Esmeralda Tossbells. Gregson. Masked Man. Here you can see, it seems like he kind of seems to be Kazuma-san. I don't know. I really don't. Okay, we don't have Mr. Thingy in the court record yet. Okay, sorry for the interruption. Let's talk about Drebber the engineer then. Is he an engineer or a magician or a swindler?
It was about a year ago when Mr. Asman first brought Drebber to meet me at my laboratory. Since then, I've met him many times to discuss details about the kinesis machine.
But at no point did you have any inkling that he was just an illusionist?
Oh, he definitely wasn't just an illusionist.
What do you mean?
He was a wealth of deep scientific knowledge. There's no question that the man's a genuine scientist. It's instantly apparent in conversation.
I see.
But the wretched man deceived you, Professor. It's unforgivable. We must do everything we can to find him and bring him to justice. Are there no more clues you can give us as to his whereabouts?
I'm sorry, we only ever discussed the kinesis machine, nothing else. Although, just once, I did visit his workshop.
What workshop?
Drebber's enormous fabrication laboratory, where he constructed my great machine.
Why didn't you mention this before? Enoch Drebber's workshop. There's every chance we might find the man there. Drebber's workshop. We're gonna talk about that, of course. So you've been to Drebber's place for work then?
Yes, just once, you understand? It was an enormous place, plenty of room to construct the kinesis machine, you see.
Where can we find it? We have to go there at once. There's a good chance that we'll find Drebber there.
Well, yes, definitely, I'm sure, I'm sure you're not going to want to hear this. But I have absolutely no idea where the workshop is at all. I'm so sorry!
I was more than half expecting that.
You see, I was blindfolded in the carriage the entire way there.
He blindfolded you? He wasn't taking any chances then.
The place was incredible, the pinnacle of modern engineering. Even the oil he used was the very best, a special French machine oil that's impossible to obtain in Britain. Ah, the indescribable scent of that imported oil. Perfumers across the world should forget the secret formula and use that instead.
What do you think, Mr. Sato? Order the machine for your next birthday?
I've never used any kind of perfume, Mr. Haruto, and I'm not sure I'd like to start with that. I don't suppose you know even part of the workshop's address, Professor? You don't have a business card for Mr. Drebber, for example?
The man was clearly very cautious, Mr. Sato. I'm sure he...
Ah ha ha! Yes, I do. He gave me his business card once. It's right here, look.
What?
Let me see that.
Throw etiquette to the wind, why don't you?
Enoch Drebber, engineer. I'm afraid that's all it says. There's no address.
No. Oh well, I can't say I'm surprised. Still, this could be useful. Drebber's card has been entered in the court record. Drebber's card. Mr. Enoch Drebber's business card. Enoch Drebber. Though it shows only the man's name, there is no address. Well, we talked about everything. We're gonna have a look at the business card, of course. Nothing in particular here. What about the... there's a stain. There's dark smudge here.
I think perhaps it's machine oil.
Ah yes, possibly. Professor Harebrayne mentioned something about the oil Mr. Drebber uses, didn't he? He said it was specially imported, very high quality oil that's impossible to obtain in Britain.
Yes, that's right. But more importantly, that it's more fragrant than the finest perfume, so... Excuse me a moment. Oh, it doesn't appear to have any scent at all.
Don't worry, I expect that's just because there's such a tiny amount on here. The details of Drebber's card have been updated in the court record. There is a smear of machine oil on the reverse. Okay, so that's good to know, nothing else, right? Yep, that's it. So we're gonna present that to the professor, of course. Okay, but we can't make anything of it. But that's okay, that is totally fine. Time to move on then. We are going to... where are we going to? I guess we're going to the experimentation stage then, because that's not next on our list. And here we are, 23rd October. But I just had a look at my clock, guys. I'm really sorry, but we are nearing the half-hour mark quite quickly. And therefore, this is going to be it for this episode of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Resolve. If you want to know what the machine looks like now and what we are about to find out, you'll have to tune in next time. See you then.